Okay. Good morning, members, and welcome to the November Skye and Raasay Area Committee. Any apologies for absence, Alistair?
No, Chair.
Okay. Declarations of interest or transparency statements?
I've not received any in advance, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And the minutes of the last area committee have been circulated for noting, and they were approved at the Highland Council meeting on 19th September. Okay, so if we move on to the first substantive item, it's the Police Scotland Local Committee Performance Report, and we've got Inspector Ali Mackenzie with us today. So I'll hand over to you, Ali. I think members did appreciate you coming along to an area business meeting, and I think we're a bit concerned that this is quite a generic report for the whole area as opposed to our specific area, but we'll hear from you first, and then I'm sure members will have questions.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yes, it is a generic document, and it covers not just our own area, it covers the whole of the South Highland. So it's not as detailed as you might want to know for your specific communities, but it is, as I think that's just the way the document's going nowadays. So if you're happy, do you want me to kind of go through the document, or is there specific sort of areas you want to discuss?
I think what we'll do, Ali, I think members have looked through it, so because it's so generic, I don't think it's going to be helpful. If we go through everything, so I think we'll just move straight to members' questions and
I think that'll be fine with that, yeah.
Okay. If any members want to ask, can you raise your hand, please? Councillor Miller.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, morning, Ali. I just wondered if it was possible to extract from the report maybe some local statistics that would affect Skye and Raasay, rather than you going through the reports. It's just, there's obviously we've all had a busy year so far on Skye, and lots of reports of various accidents and various perhaps criminal activities that we may have heard of, certainly in the north end of Skye. And I just wonder if you would like to give us some statistics based on our own particular patch, if that's possible.
To be honest, I can't do that. I can't extract that information. If you'd given me some prior notice, I could have done that, but unfortunately, I don't have that ability at this quick time to do that. All I can give you is some anecdotal sort of information on how the community is doing with the policing up here. And yeah, we have noticed an increase in the numbers of visitors to the area, which has had an impact in our resources and distribution of officers to go to such things as missing persons up in the hills, road accidents involving foreign drivers. Not just that, but also vehicles that have broken down and there's limited networks coverage, and all they can do is contact 999, and then it comes to us as a resource to assist stranded motorists. So all these, and then we also have our own domestic crime in the area as well, and that includes, as you say, break-ins and thefts and drug misuse, and also sexual crimes and domestic related crimes as well.
Okay.
Would it be possible, Chairman, then maybe if at that future ward business meeting, if we could maybe just get a local update on the activities and maybe just on the police resources as well, if that was possible. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I think when we look at the agenda for today, it does say the change in format necessitated by a reduction in back office capacity to prepare additional area committee reports. So it would appear that the police, like other public agencies, are struggling with staff. So I think it's something that we take to senior officers, and it might be, rather than have 2 police reports per annum, we have 1 police report per annum that focuses purely on our local area. So that's something, Ali, I'll take to senior officers and senior members and see if we can, here we can move that forward. Totally appreciate it. This report is not of your making, and appreciate the resource issues. Callum?
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everybody. Ali, thanks for coming in. I think, to be fair, the points have been covered. Ali's been given a really poor hand here. You can't speak. You can't speak to that report. There's nothing with a local, specific local statistics, which isn't helpful. Just, Ali, I suppose it's a chance to thank you and your officers for what you do and how responsive you are. As Councillor Muller said, we had a good catch up at an area business meeting a number of weeks ago. These sort of things are important. I think, John, as chair, what you're saying in terms of an annual meaningful report would be one way forward. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. And again, Ali, maybe just because the meeting isn't public, in terms of your own staffing allocation, I think when we spoke to you, I think you are fully staffed, but fully staffed doesn't mean to say that every officer is available to you because of illnesses or whatever. So it's maybe, can you sort of indicate how that's shaping up at the moment? Obviously, with winter coming on, Ali, there'll be additional pressures and additional probably asks of you.
Yeah, no, I've got some good news, to be honest. I have a new probationer starting tonight. This will be her first night shift. And I've also got a secondee that's come across from the Central Belt. He starts today as well. Having said that, we have lost 2 staff, so it's a case of it's just balanced it out. But we've also put an application in for an additional officer for Portree, and if everything goes well, we should get that officer around about February time next year. That's when the next police national staffing movement happens. So we're not being ignored, we're not being forgotten about, and it's something that I do bang the drum about staffing here. And equally, you did mention about staffing and who are off sick and such like, and then we're constantly looking at those staff and then trying to do our best we can to try and get them back to work and back to full fitness. So there's always that going on as well. It's not just trying to get new staff in; it's also just the staff that we've got and make sure that they are looked after as well.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, Ali. Thanks very much for that update. Okay, well, it looks like I'm not seeing any other hands, Ali. It looks like you're going to get off very lightly today. And I think, as Callum has said, we do appreciate the work that's been done by our officers in the area. And hopefully we can, between the Council and Police Scotland, try and negotiate something so we get a more meaningful report for our area. And we do recognise that that issue is not of your making, but we thank you for your attendance.
Yeah, it would be more beneficial if we did have something more sort of tangible that showed exactly what was happening in Skye and Raasay. So apologies that is a very generic document.
Okay, thanks, Ali, and we'll see you sometime in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Take care, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, members, agenda item 5 was going to be a community payback service, a presentation from James Bates, but James has called off this morning through ill health. So we'll bring that presentation to hopefully the next area committee in the new year. Okay, so our next item is the housing performance report, and we got Margaret, I think, is with us. Okay, Margaret's with us. Margaret, it might be helpful maybe at the start to try and update us on how this housing report is working now, because I believe instead of having one report, we're now got a housing performance report, and then we're getting a repairs and report later. So it's been split into 2. I think we as local members don't particularly find that useful. So it might be that we can maybe discuss offline how we can combine the 2 reports. But your job is to comment on the housing performance report. So over to you, Margaret.
Thank you and good morning. As you say, Councillor Finnison, up until now, it was a combined housing management and building maintenance report. But I think it is the right decision to split these reports. So going forward, the housing management team will report to you Q2 and Q4, and building maintenance will report to you Q1 and Q3. The intention of splitting it allows us to look at more specific work areas and to allow for a more detailed scrutiny of performance, and that can only be good. It should allow for more focused discussions with members at committee level, I would have thought. And the new housing management performance report includes additional information on key indicators and performance. So that's the kind of history behind splitting it. It was always quite difficult for a principal housing officer to present a building maintenance report to you, because principal housing officers do not have a remit for repairs. So from that point of view, I'm delighted that I'm only presenting the housing management report. And you'll have, I presume, maybe a principal repairs officer will present his report. Yeah. So members this morning are asked to note the information on the housing performance for the period 1st of April 2024 till the end of September. And the only thing to note is that the rent arrears, antisocial behaviour and allocations figures are cumulative in this report, but the homeless presentation figures are given for each separate quarter. So moving on to rent arrears, well, the figures speak for themselves. We have a refocused team who have worked exceptionally hard over the last year, and that has resulted in a mammoth reduction in rent arrears. And I'm very proud of them, every one of them. Table 6.5 shows us the gross rent arrears as a percentage of annual rent due, and it continues to decrease on Skye and is below the Highland wide figure. So we should be pleased about that. Table 3 gives you a wee bit more of a breakdown, which I think is very useful, and you'll see that the majority of the arrears are under £500, and that ties in with the challenges we face because universal credit is paid in arrears and the mass migration continues. I believe they're almost at the end of the migration for job seekers, and they're now looking at ESA clients on employment support allowance. So the majority of the arrears are below £500. And then we move on to the actions that the team have taken to control and pursue those arrears. Those figures will be of some interest to you, I would think. We continue to have a fair approach, but quite a robust approach, because we do need to control rent arrears. But there's lots of ways we can support people in rent arrears, and we continue to do that. Antisocial behaviour. I think there's a bit of underreporting here. There's a lot of not a lot, but there are low-level cases that the team work very hard to control, and they're maybe not getting reported as serious cases because they're not serious. So there's a bit of underreporting there, I would think. Then homelessness will be of huge interest to you. 21 of the Highland-wide presentations were in Skye for that period, and we're seeing some new trends emerging with homeless presentations. There's an increase in private landlords selling their properties due to their own financial situations, and greatly increased pressure on the private sector. Then table 7, this is a Highland-wide figure. They're not able to break that down. You'll see the reduction of time spent in temporary accommodation. It's come down a bit. Table 8 shows us the number of homeless applications currently open with the local team, covering Skye, Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh, of course. You'll be able to see that primarily 1s and 2 beds are the big. Most of the homeless presentations are coming from those clients. Then table 9, number of allocations completed. You'll be able to have a look at those figures. 95% of all lets went to homeless households, but we did a wee bit of extra digging for you, and you'll be very interested to know that 80% of those allocations, people had 80% of those applicants had need to reside points, which means they have a connection to the area or employment, which is an interesting stat. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, Margaret, thank you very much for that. So, and the initial comment I made, it was just that I think a lot of what's in your report is in things in linked to things like repairs. But anyway, we can agree to disagree, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we'll go to members and see if there are any questions and comments. Okay, we're very slow, so I'm quite happy to start then, Margaret, if you don't mind. Looking at the homeless presentations and the new trends emerging within homeless presentations that includes an increase in private landlords selling their properties. I've actually had a few landlords who have expressed an interest in changing from short-term let maybe to the possibility of long-term lets, but they don't know where to start. They don't know who they should approach. They don't know where they'll get guidance. So is there anywhere or there, that people in that position could maybe turn to? Is there an officer in the council? Is there a policy that would enable them to see what they would need to do to maybe move away from Airbnb to short-term lets into longer-term lets? And my second comment, Margaret, is in terms of the homeless household property of types. In Table 8, is Table 8 not purely for Skye? Did you say Skye, Strathpeffer and Lochash? Have we got the specific figures for Skye and Raasay only? Thank you.
Thank you. No, we don't have specific figures just for Skye in this table, but I'll see if I can get you those specific figures. I think what you should do is pass my contact details on to anybody, any landlord who's thinking of changing their remit, and they can start with me and I'll get the required advice for them and signpost them correctly. You're on mute, Councillor Finlayson.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Munro.
You're on mute too, Councillor Munro.
Oh, you've got some team here today, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Thanks for coming into committee. I like to hear about refocusing and focus teams, and that's been there's evidence of that in the reduction in rent arrears, which is really positive. So well done. I suppose focusing and refocusing teams comes down to leadership. So whoever has been involved in that, probably yourself, that's really positive. Thank you. In terms of the need to reside points, 80% were need to reside points who were given allocations. I just wonder, is in a full Highland context, is that a high number at 80%, or how would it compare across Highland? I mean, if 80% is reasonable high number for this area.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that. I maybe need to take some further advice on that. I would think that figure will be fairly high everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. It was just really to demonstrate to you that these 80% of these allocations are going to people with that connection to the area.
Yeah. Okay, Margaret, thanks so much. No more questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Margaret, for the report. It's very good to see the rent arrears have came right down, and that's a good reflection on the good work that's been done by all of the staff. So it's a big well done from me on that, because this is money that can be spent improving the housing estate, like doing upgrades to the house, doing some of the repair work that needs to be done. So this is a very positive trend, and I hope to see it continue. But it's also worth noting, you mentioned how this has sort of been done, the methods, and it's very good to see that the number of evictions has been very limited through this. And again, this highlights the resolve and professionalism that your team has when engaging with their tenants. So again, this is very good. A couple of other points that I would like to make is the antisocial behaviours listed at 0, which is, that's very good. That's a positive stat. But anecdotally, I'm hearing that there is antisocial behaviour in our communities. Some of that through our tenants, some of it not through our tenants. But I would be interested, Margaret, if you could let me know how people are meant to report that, what the channel is, if people do have concerns with antisocial behaviour, how do they raise that with you? And my second point is with regards to the homeless presentations. So looking at that, with the exception of the 2 transfers, 100% of the allocations were to those with homeless applicants. And I appreciate that, a points-based system restricts, what you can do and what your team can do when it comes to allocations. And it was interesting to hear that the 80% stat for the need to reside points. But, I think probably wider outside of this meeting, we've got to review how we do that to make sure that the allocation policy works for Skye, because quite often I think that the Highland-wide policies are trying to push a round peg into a square hole, and I'm not entirely sure that we're getting it right. You know, I'm certainly seeing some concerning trends in my inbox with constituents contacting me regarding difficulties getting houses, and these are people that are the pillars of our community, you know, working as first responders, working in our voluntary and public sector, you know, the people that we really need to be rooted in our community. So I do appreciate that, you know, it's very much your hands are tied with the policy, but I think there needs to be a wider proactive discussion about how to make sure that the policy that we've got works for the people here in Skye. But no, thank you again, Margaret, for the report, and very positive overall.
Thank you. The antisocial behaviour, there's several ways people can report it. They can obviously go through the service centre, and the customer relationship management system will pass something through to us. But equally, they can approach their own housing officer directly, which is where most of the low level. I mean, I do believe there's a bit of underreporting. We tend only to report on the serious and persistent cases, but there's lots of little neighbour disputes kicking about, that kind of thing, which the team just work at as part of their, you know, their everyday tasks, really. So yes, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that there is no antisocial behaviour, but the serious and persistent cases are low, I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just picking up on Councillor Stewart's point there about the allocation model, and I totally agree. I mean, I think we are in a situation now where we absolutely do not want anyone to be homeless, but we are seeing more and more young people who are becoming not so young, who have been trying to get a house for, dare I say, years and years and years, and they cannot get the points required to get, you know, to get a house. And for example, they may be staying with their parents since they were 18 and they're now 34 and they've been on the housing list that long. So, you know, and I think as Councillor Stewart said, maybe we know there's a Highland allocation model, but I agree with him when he says that maybe we should be looking at something more bespoke. But as I say, that's not for this meeting, but it's certainly a point that's made regularly to me. We've got young people and not so young people who have been on the housing list for years and years, and there's no end in sight, I suppose, what I'm saying. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and I would just endorse what you said there, and what Councillor Stewart said as well. I think there's always been a concern within Skye, for as long as I can remember, about the allocation policy, and I do have some concerns looking at some of the stats there that you know, we've got plans for, what is it, 260 something houses to be built in Portree alone over the next few years, and the concern would be looking around and looking at the figures, how many of these houses will be allocated to people who are living and working, who were born living and working on Skye. That's probably a concern, and it's maybe not for a discussion today, but it's certainly maybe for a discussion in the future. Can I just thank you for the report anyway, Margaret? But and it's encouraging to see that so many of the rent arrears are below or round about the £500, which is good to know. But I just wanted to maybe just, if I could find it, find the report here. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just on one of the homeless things, for example, it intrigued me a little bit. The 71 current number of homeless households on Skye. There are one which is requiring a 3-bedroom and 2 requiring a 4-bedroom property, and I just wondered how that situation arose, because we don't do many 4-bedroom houses anyway. At least I didn't think we did. But it's a question of how did these people get on that list? Because one would assume they were homeless maybe when they had a need for 2 beds or 1 bedroom, and now it's up to 4 bedrooms. And I just wondered how it just got me a wee bit interested in how that came about. But the other thing as well is just on the allocations policy. There are some concerns in my particular area of people who are in extreme arrears financially with the council, and they are then, who own properties, but are then all of a sudden allocated a house, a council house, and they are immediately go into arrears. And I just wonder, is the council too nice? Are we just slightly too accommodating? Is maybe the one way of putting it. Your thoughts on that would be good.
No, I don't think we're too nice at all. I mean, we have a very robust rent arrears policy, which is looked at fairly frequently to check that it's fit for purpose. We did a big exercise last year, and maybe even the year before actually, and we decided that after the pandemic it was still fit for purpose. So it is based on an escalation path. I'll just take 2 minutes to give you a rough run through it, if that's okay. As soon as somebody falls into arrears by 1 week, they get an automatic letter, and the second week they get another automatic letter. After that, the pursuing of those rent arrears falls to the local teams, and the escalation path kicks in. Now, an eviction's a failure for us. We don't want evictions. That's not what this is about. We want to keep people in their homes. So we do lots of signposting for support to the debt advice agencies. We look to see if they've got a housing support need. We can commission short-term housing support to help them settle into these new tenancies and get off to a good start. But if the rent isn't getting paid, then we will look to eventually proceed to court. Without question of doubt, we will do that. But it's not a particularly quick process. It can take 6 or 7 months. And there are, at every stage, a housing officer is available to discuss those arrears with that tenant. We make lots of contact. We use all the tools in the toolbox. So I don't think we're too nice. I think the rent arrears escalation policy is fit for purpose. And if you've got a strong team who follow that escalation policy, then universal credit is the exception, of course. It's been hard on us because it pays 5 weekly in arrears. So many people who choose to have their housing element paid to us from their universal credit are in arrears. And there's not an awful lot we can do about that. We can encourage them to pay a wee bit extra every week, and eventually maybe they'll get ahead of themselves. But that's an uphill struggle. So no, I don't think we're too nice, and I think it's a good, sound rent arrears policy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just another quick point. Since there seems to be somewhat of a consensus regarding the allocations policy, would it perhaps be a good idea, Chair, if you were to make representation to Councillor Campbell Sinclair from the Housing and Property Committee, just to try and start this discussion in a sort of more formal forum to make sure that we can get something on the cards sooner rather than later? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that one. Margaret, I'm just going to come back with the Councillor Miller was saying about us being too nice. It's really just, I know of a scenario, for example, where someone decided to sell their property, which they did, and pocketed a handsome cheque. They then went on to the housing list, and within a reasonably short term, they got basically a council house, despite the fact that they had previously had their own property. So is that something that you're aware happens? And in such circumstances, is the council able to inquire what happened previous to them becoming on the housing list? Or is that just down to local intelligence, or are they entitled to be there irrespective of whether they've sold a house and pocketed all the money or not?
They are entitled to be on the list, yeah. Owning property is no barrier at this moment. Having sold a property is no barrier. Financial acumen is no barrier. It's a needs-based list, and the form is assessed based on their current housing need.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Miller?
I don't understand this world that I'm living in. So following on from Councillor Finlayson's scenario, I have a scenario where a person owns 5 properties, takes I understand, a commercial income from those 5 properties, was in a private rent thing, applied to go onto the housing list, and very quickly, given Councillor Finlayson's scenario of somebody waiting for 18 years or so, or 16 years to get, and still not on the housing list, this person was given a house, a council house, and immediately went to arrears. So there must be something flawed with the allocation policies within this council if that can happen, because we all know, I think, looking around the screen, the 4 members for the Ward 10 know of many young people who have left school, who are working, but they don't have the points to get a house or anything, even a flat. So there must be something wrong with the policy when the scenarios that Councillor Finlayson and I have just given out seem to be able to access properties, say, at the drop of a hat. Thank you.
Okay, Margaret, that's above your pay grade, so it's just observations that members are making. But as Councillor Stewart has indicated, I'll certainly be speaking to Councillor Campbell-Sinkle, the Chair of Housing and Property, and I'm sure we'll be discussing allocation policies for some time to come. Okay, members, any other comments or questions for Margaret? Okay, Margaret, once again, thank you very much for coming to the committee. We always appreciate having you along. You hold no punches, quite rightly, and you tell us what we need to know. So we appreciate that. But we won't see you next time because you're not on the cycle, but we'll see you the time after.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we're moving on to item 7, a report that we've been waiting some time for, and certainly a report that we were keen to have at the area committee, and that's to do with the Portree Link Road. I think Gary's with us. Gary is with us. Okay, Gary, you can talk us through the report. I think, as I've said to you personally, maybe there's not as much in it as I would have liked, but I'm sure you'll pad out what's not in it, and I'm sure members will have questions that will enable us to understand things a bit more. So over to you, Gary.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, I don't have a presentation on Portree Link Road today, but the scheme is now in a position to, I think what the report basically says is the scheme is now in a position to move forward. The project design unit are proceeding with purifying the planning conditions. We have 10 conditions in the planning consent that we have for that, so we're working through them, and that's the ecology of how we build it, and the archaeology, drainage, and the design as we're moving forward. So we're working through that, and we are coordinating with the utility companies now to complete the scheme next summer. So what we've done is we've undertaken to complete the design by the end of February next year, and that'll put us in a position that we can tender that work for construction next year. So that's effectively where we are, and we're moving forward on that. And I know that this one has been a long time in the making, but I think we are very close now to completing this part of infrastructure.
Okay, Gary, I'm noticing Helen's with us as well. Helen, do you want to add anything at this stage? We're not hearing you very well, Helen. I don't know what's happening.
It's because I had my microphone was at the top of my head. Can you hear me better now?
Can indeed.
Yeah, it was just to reassure everybody, yes, it's moving forward, as Gary said, because I know there has been a lot of concern about progress on it, and it was just to give that reassurance that we have funding, it's moving ahead, and we're talking to, there is the backdrop of the decrofting still ongoing, but we're seeking early access agreements from both the landowners to make sure that happens in a concurrent time frame, so that that doesn't hold up getting on site.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, Helen, was round about the land acquisition, etc. So we're confident that we're in a position where that's not going to cause any hold up, and I mean the whole decrofting issues are progressing as quickly as they can, because we know decrofting can sometimes take years, unfortunately. But I'm sure there is ongoing discussion with the Crofting Commission. Okay, I'll go to members. Councillor Monroe first.
Thank you, Chair. There is a Gaelic saying, Riki Iach Maul Mullen, which means the slow horse will reach the mill. So I'm glad that we've been able to have our concerns maybe given some reassurance. Now, in my office, I've got a cutting, and I can't find it, from a West Highland Free Press in the mid to late 90s. And there's a young Skye Councillor Miller, I think, quoted. And there's also John Facher Monroe, the late John Facher Monroe is quoted. And they were discussing the link road in these days, almost 30 years ago. They had concern, I believe, about the contractors maybe dictating some of the design of the road, and I'm sure that's not a concern we have in 2025. I just think it's so important that this goes ahead to alleviate the challenges we have with the flow of traffic through Portree and into North Skye. It also will let us address the much needed upgrade of Summerless Square. That's much needed. So, Chair, my question to you was, or suggestion, is that we have a report to future area committees, each area committees, on the progress on this, just so we keep an eye on it and the public know how it's progressing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Monroe. I think that's a good idea. And as I said, given the time scales, it's possible that maybe we have a summary back in February, because we are looking for something related to Portree Harbour in February. And again, they're all interrelated as well, as you said. All of these developments that we're hoping for around Portree, that'll affect the rest of the island. So I'm sure that's something we can facilitate. Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Well, the slow horse certainly will reach the mill, and I'm very glad to see that this one's almost there. I think, as Councillor Monroe says, this will be a big win for Portree and a big win for the north of Skye. I can remember speaking actually as a new member in my first planning committee, and this was one of the applications that were before us, and I can remember the volume of representation that I received, which just as a testament to the community support for this. I think everybody knows this needs to happen, and it's good to see that we're on the last push with it now. However, Gary, I've got one question. I know from the background paper that was in 21, I believe, so it predated my time in the council, the cost for the link road was estimated to be 1.6 million, with 1.4 being met from the developer contribution and the remaining from the capital programme. Now, my question is, in this paper, it's currently still sitting there as a £1.6 million project. So obviously that's not been adjusted for inflation, because looking at even CPI, we're closer to 2 million than 1.6. So I'm just wondering if you can give us an idea of where the cost for this project currently is, and what the sort of gap's going to be between the developer contributions and the cost of the project, because I think we're all in agreement that this is happening and this is really good, but it's just good to get that bit of housekeeping on the financials. So if you can provide that, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to Gary and Helen, we'll go to Councillor Miller. For the last question or comment.
Yeah, sorry, it'll be a comment. I unfortunately missed Gary's fantastic description of the report, because for some reason my internet dropped out. So, but all I can say, Councillor Stewart recalling his first meeting as a young councillor, and Gary he might be old enough to remember this. My first presentation to the Highland Regional Council's Economic Development Committee about the merits of having the link road completed from Dunvegan Road to the A855. I think it was 1995. I'm delighted that we're almost the.
You're breaking up, Councillor Miller. We're losing you. Hey, Drew, you've frozen. We've lost you. Okay, maybe Gary and Helen, you can come back with Councillor Stewart's to answer Councillor Stewart's points, and then hopefully Councillor Miller will come back by it.
Yeah, I can't comment on the 2021 cost estimate. That we have redone the cost estimate. I think maybe perhaps in 2021 we were being overly pessimistic in terms of what was involved in the cost. We now have completed. We've been through the planning process. We know what's in the scheme now with a bit more certainty. Maybe it was based on a preliminary figure, but we're now that 1.6 million, I'm assured, is sufficient to construct what we've got.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not obviously going to comment on developer contributions. I think that's maybe for somebody else in planning to do.
Okay, Helen, any comments?
No, nothing further to add, in that we're working within that budget figure.
Okay, Councillor Miller, do you want to try again? Maybe keep the camera off.
No, that's fine. I hope you can hear me okay. Can you?
You're good. No, you're good. You're very clear now. So on you go.
I'll leave my camera off. That might make. I've always been told I had the perfect face for radio anyway, so you'd be glad you can't see me. But no, I just welcome. I've been waiting a long time for this road to be completed, and I do hope. I'm sorry I missed any comments from Helen or from Gary, but I just do hope that we can have this road completed and open before the end of 2025. I think it's the whole of the population of the end of Skye have been waiting for this road since first spoken at the Highland Regional Council in 1995. So I really hope that we can see it. I just wondered perhaps if it's, I may have missed this, so I do apologise. Is this going to be going out to tender, or will the council be able to carry out the works on this particular project themselves? Thank you, Chair.
It will be going out to tender. The council, that there are arrangements that the council can be one of the contractors that bid for work. So we can do that, but it will be competitively tendered.
Okay, so I think that's really important. That the council has got the option, given the record we have on Skye, of the council working with local contractors, to achieve success with many infrastructure projects. So that's encouraging to hear, Gary. Thanks for that. Okay, so effectively, it's all good news, guys. We're on a forward trajectory. When this time next year, if we're all still around, we'll actually be able to drive on the link road, and we'll hopefully, Gary, maybe get an update either in February or at the following area committee. But I'll liaise with yourself over that. Okay, thanks, Gary, and thanks, Helen. Okay, members, moving on to item 8, the parking income. We've got Shane with us today, who's going to give us a commentary on the paper that's been presented. I think it would be really helpful, Shane, if you can sort of, articulate, what the tables are actually telling us, because I think maybe some of us are confused, particularly me. And I think we need to, understand the whole issue about costs, the whole issue about the 50% after costs, the whole issue about capital borrowing. So I'll hand over to yourself, Shane, and then members will come in.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning, members. So the paper itself is an update paper to as members requested, to give a sort of a picture of where we are, where we've been, and where we are this year, in line with previous year's income generation. So the tables I've provided you with in 5.1, that is the net income after VAT. So there's no cost deducted in that table. So that just gives a true picture of the cash generated on the Isle of Skye. Okay, but obviously I've deducted VAT. There's no avoiding the VAT man. That's got to be paid by the council. So that gives a clear picture of where we've been since 2019-20, when members supported the service in bringing forward some of the changes in how we deal with things on the Isle of Skye and introducing pay and display. And on the back of the paper back in 2019 at full council, or was it I&E? I can't remember now. There's a link to the paper at the bottom of the to that paper at the bottom of this paper. There was a decision made at council to introduce a ring-fence share of income to be given to area committees who generate income. So everything post November 2019 saw a dividend coming back to area committee members to spend as you saw fit under your complete governance. So that's the wee history lesson there for anybody who wasn't aware and maybe tuning in. So the table one gives both split by on-street and off-street because they're dealt with slightly differently. Off-street VAT applies, on-street VAT does not apply. And just another point of transparency, we do not share, we do not ring fence any income from on-street anywhere in Highland. It's legally a separate entity. It's dealt with as a traffic management measure, and therefore HMRC do not collect VAT from the on-street income. The income is directly added to the traffic and parking service budget, and it helps pay the cost of the service. So it's obviously not just Skye, but Inverness and Fort William and all the other locations or any location that has income generated on street. That is deemed part of the traffic and parking services budget, and it goes towards paying wages, infrastructure costs, our offices and all the other ancillary costs of running an enforcement service. The good news from that is that the service itself has no cost to the council directly. It's fully funded, so it doesn't come out of any other council budgets. So that's table 5.1, giving the overall picture of income that's been generated and is generated to date. Table in 5.2 is the amount of money that directly was earmarked for Skye area committee to invest, reinvest, spend as they saw fit. Now that amount is after all deductions. So the policy actually says that members receive 50% of the net income after deductions. The deductions include things like the operation and maintenance of the parking meters, the costs of transactions. So the more money you make, the more costs you have to pay for card payments and the likes. And there's also within the policy an annualized maintenance fee of around £53, I think, when these figures were calculated, per bay per year. That's based on a calculation over a 40-year lifespan of a car park, and over that 40 years, what is the risk? What is the risk the council are carrying for replacement and repair of capital infrastructure? And that's everything from minor, what you may class as revenue repairs, which would be lining, and then surface treatments, surface replacements, resurfacing car parks, etc. So all those deductions are made from the income before reporting to members the earmarked balances that are made available to you to spend annually. This applies across the council, and it applies to even invitation to pay sites in other locations. Skye doesn't have any, but we take the same position. We deduct the annualized costs of the asset before we distribute earmarked funds to area committees as per policy. Table 6.1, members were keen to understand the enforcement activity on the island. We now have 3 officers. I got to thank the members for their support in getting that resource increased from original from when we started, and we're always looking to justify an increase in resource on the island to deal with the problems that you have. So your members will be well aware that we're in debate about potentially getting a 4th officer to cover south of the island and the Kyle area, Western Locale, shall we say. The income that's shown here, these are, shall we say, the ticket sale value, the number and the value of the ticket when it was issued. Okay, so the ticket would have been issued at £100 value, but we do not receive that £100 value per ticket back. So the industry level is around 70%. It actually varies between 64% and 75%. I've just taken 70% as an indicator for you members of how much cash ends up in the council's bank account. Now that's obviously due to multiple reasons. We have voided tickets, we have appeals, challenges, that void tickets, and then we have failure to recover income because we just can't find people. So that gives you an indication of the level of income last year and year to date. Now you can see that there's a lot more sites in the 2024 season, and that's a testament to having an extra officer, because it means that there's more places we can get to and carry out our enforcement activity. And the table in table 7 was an indication, and it's an indication, it's not gospel, members. It's an indication of the total revenue after VAT and costs, a headline figure that is generated by Skye. So the top half of the table gives an overall value of 1.5 million for income that's been generated on the island of Skye since 2019 to the complete year of 2023-24. And then the below that, you'll see approximate investment on Skye. So the first line of figures, totaling 634,787, includes, for example, rent we pay to Portree and Raasay Community Trust, income that goes to Skirpid from their car parks that are included in this list, which they directly reinvest with the crofting community that they support. Capital, and there's a line there underneath it with capital expenditure for so in 2019 and 2021 we had big chunks of investment that the council funded projects including Bayfield and the store car park, and in the round, when you compare the total income coming from the Isle of Skye after costs and VAT and the total amount that's been directly invested on the island, not just with the area committee obviously, but with other stakeholders as well, it gives you a figure of 144,787, approximately 95%. Now these figures are approximate, they're not, chiseled in stone, members, and there's some nuances around, as previously been mentioned, that there are costs taken out and set aside to budgets, to centralized budgets, which are not in the income generated there. They're not detailed separately, but that comes back to the £53 per bay per year that I talked about earlier on. So sorry, a bit of a lengthy blather from me there. I welcome any questions you may have, members.
Okay, thank you, Shane. I think that's really helpful. Before I go to other members, I'm just going to try and summarise for myself where we are. So table 5 is the money raised after VAT, but I think it's important to realise that we do not get all the income when we don't get income from Summerlid Square car park or the Green car park, because the policy about the local share didn't come in, it came in after these car parks. So the legacy car parks We don't get income from them at the moment. Also, when we're looking at all the income generated on Skye, I think it's important to realise that 100% of on-street, we don't get any of that. We don't see anything of the penalty charge notice income. And of course, we're also still paying capital borrowing costs, because I'm sure some of the public think that we're getting everything that's there. But what we do get is we get 50% of income after costs from car parks that are not legacy car parks. The other point to make, Shane, is you mentioned that there's a cost per bay for maintenance. I suppose what I'm keen to see is, a record of on which car parks the maintenance is happening. Because I do know, for example, in car parks like Broadford, there is real concern about the state of the car park there. And the other question is, looking at enforcement income, quite surprised to see such high enforcement income at the Store off-street car park, because my understanding is that we've got staff at the store who are monitoring the car parking there. So effectively, there's still an awful lot of people getting charged for using the off-street car park. So it'd be quite good to understand why that is. But before you answer my questions, I'll go to Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Shane, for a very comprehensive report. This is almost quite a contentious item when it comes up, or when people contact me about it. There's a very wide sort of spread feeling on Skye that the big greedy council in Inverness is taking all the car parking money, and we're left to pick up the crumbs. And I can see from the investment figures that while it's not entirely true, there is a percentage of the money that is perhaps sliced off and skimmed off, and while there is that investment, it's perhaps not, as Councillor Finlayson said, in the areas that we as members appreciate our need of this. And of course, I acknowledge the need that the service has regarding costs, and of course, with card processing, with maintenance, with the funding of the service directly. So with all of that in mind, Chair, I do actually have an amendment almost, and it's not to change the policy or anything like that. It's just to sort of note that as a member that I feel, and perhaps if it's agreed other members feel, that all of the money after costs generated in Skye from off-street parking income should be retained and spent on Skye. So again, I'm not asking to change the policy. It's just sort of more that I'm strongly of the belief that money should be here, and it should be for us at a local level to decide where it's spent. But again, I won't say much more because it's a very comprehensive report, and I would again just like to put on record my thanks to the officers of the service, because they run a very efficient service, and that is from an HQ side, from yourself, Shane, and the management, but also the local team that are working on the ground. But I'll pop something in the chat in just a quick second. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, Rudy. The policy was agreed at council, so we're not in a position to bring forward any amendment. But we are, I think we are happy to note your thoughts, and and obviously they will be minuted as well. And I'm sure other members would like to see more of the money that's raised in Skye staying in Skye. So I mean, I would assume that's something that would need to be raised probably at Corporate Resources, Rudy, and at full council. But I think the sentiment you raised is one I'm sure we all support. Drew?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry I haven't got my camera on, but I think there's something wrong with the internet speed. But anyway, I welcome the report, and thanks very much, Shane. It was certainly better to hear a detailed report than just a couple of little sentences, so it's much appreciated. I think that probably is time that we had a look at council at the off-street parking. I think the legacy parking, there's been changes in the last couple of years, rent price increases, etc. So we need to maybe, I know it's not Shane's remit to do it, but I think as councillors we should be able to speak to our own administration and see what can be changed regarding the policy. I think that sentiments expressed by Rudy just a few moments ago, I think is felt by all members of certainly every ward, but certainly here on Skye and Raasay. And I think we should be somehow speaking to our own administration groups and to senior officers to look at having the policy changed so that we can maybe have more money diverted towards the local areas. I believe that we should get the maximum amount possible. I don't think 100% sadly is feasible. A man of many years experience told me many years ago that a percentage of something is better than nothing at all. And if you go for 100%, then you've got no backup to go and to access any other funds from anywhere else. So I think we need to have a proper discussion about how the money is allocated. But Shane's interesting point there about the amount per square, per bay as well, is interesting. And I don't know if Shane's seen it yet, but I did send you an email a few days ago with some pictures of the square at Summerlin Square, which is in need of resurfacing now. Hopefully could be done before the summer. We've had many discussions, Councillor Finlayson and myself and yourself, regarding the state of the car park at Broadford, which needs serious investment there, not only in resurfacing but relining. And I do believe we need to put some sort of charging structure in there as well to maximise. But maybe that's again something that hopefully we can pick up over the next few weeks. But the report is good, and we're glad to get the money in. It's good, of course, to emphasise that the Portree and Braes Trust and Scripted are getting money, which they are investing as well. So it's a very welcome. Sorry, I'm just. So anyway, that's about me just now. But thanks for the report, Shane, and we look forward to spending the money once we get it.
Okay, Councillor Monroe, and then we'll go back to Shane.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Shane, for the report, and thank you again for how you spoke to it and actually, teased out a few of the things which maybe weren't so obvious but important people to hear. There's more to this than income. Your officers provide a really important traffic management function, often dealing with chaotic parking, chaotic iconic spots. So they do an important job, and we value that. I think in terms of the real world, I mean, income generation is critical to Highland Council balancing its budget. So if we take 100% to Skye, it creates a budget pressure. So that would mean we'd either have to increase council tax or take money off services. So it's easy to say it should all come to Skye. I think there's a more nuanced debate to be had in that. So I think it's certainly not within our power to say what happens. I think that's a very detailed and important debate to have at a future date. So Shane, too, I mean, the money to Skye, looking like 179,000 for this current financial year. That's important money. Really, we can use it. It's discretionary money we can use as we decide fit. I'm not sure 95% is noted as being of total income is invested in Skye. I'm not sure that figure is quite that paints a completely true picture. But what is important is the investment. We're having investment at Storr, at Bayfield. We're also having scripted investment at Kerrang, future at Clachan too. These are significant amounts of money coming to Skye and to Skye contractors too. So thanks for the report, Shane. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Callum. Yeah, and I think it is important to recognise the income that is coming and how we're using that as much funding for other income streams that come from other sources to improve the infrastructure across the island. So, I mean, it is indeed very welcome money. And, I mean, the allocations policy, I mean, it's something that can be reviewed. My own personal opinion is maybe we should be considering maybe getting part of the on-street as well, because I think when we go back and we look at the on-street parking that's been created in some areas, we did put some of our members' funding in to facilitate the construction of that. So anyway, these are all political matters, Shane, that you don't need to get involved in. But in terms of some of the questions and observations, do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. You opened by talking about the on-street income. So the service receives that within their mainline budget for operating the service, along with Inverness and Fort William, for example. Just to put you in context, you know, it's the same rules apply across the council. And we do spend in-year income directly from that revenue, where we can within the overall budget. So, for example, we spent £12,000 on relining the store roadside this year, and that just came out of directly out of the revenue when it came in. So our service do spend money, reinvest it at the sites, but it's not something that we can necessarily plan for in the long term, because we're not bidding for a pot of money like you would with a capital budget. But where my discretion as the service manager, where I feel that the budget is going to be achieved at the end of the year and we may be going to be over budget, then I'll try and reinvest that money to get problems fixed in year when we need to. Can't do it all the time, but that's just a little bit of leeway that I have when dealing with that on-street income. PCNs at store, and at the end of the day, we only issue penalty charge notices for contraventions. You know, if they're not happening, we're not issuing tickets. So there is a marked volume of penalty charges for off-street compared to on-street around the store. I mean, I can go away and update members at a ward level in the future with a more detailed breakdown, sort of things by contravention and things like that, so we can see whether it's wrong class of vehicle, have they not displayed a pay and display ticket, have they overrun their ticket, etc., etc. So I can tease out a little bit more detail for you members at a future date to give you a clearer picture, if that's okay. So we talked about the maintenance figure. Please excuse me. The maintenance figure. So when the policy in 2019 was brought to council, what hadn't been considered previously, there's some 240 car parks across council at that time. And the council was sitting with a standing risk, shall we call it, of whether a car park's generating income or not. It has a cost to the council. We pay business rates, for example, on off-street car parks, whether they're pay and display or not. And then it was understanding what the capital and maintenance risk for these sites were. And what was done was a general analysis on a 40-year lifespan of a car park, broken down to everything from is there lighting at the site? How much does that cost a year? Are there bins at the site? How much does that cost per year? The bays might be relined 5 times in 40 years. They might be surface dressed twice, and they might have a complete surface treatment once in its lifetime. Now, that doesn't mean that money actually gets spent on the car parks, unfortunately, because as we talked about earlier, that income or that deduction as a cost goes into the council's central revenue, and any capital investment or maintenance program has to be considered within that context. I'd put it akin to road surfacing, you know, where members will have a capital budget allocated for maintaining the road network, and would have to bid for where that capital and how much capital would be drawn by the council. That's the overall picture. It's not something that I, as an officer, have a say in. That's just the way it is. So if we were to say, for example, excuse me, time of year, cold and cough, Broadford, we need, I think the last estimate was around £40,000 of capital to resurface it. Then a bid to your capital programme for roads would have to be made, and that would be £40,000 spent on the car park and not spent on resurfacing a piece of road. I mean, technically speaking, car parks are part of the road network. you know, from a legislative point of view and an asset point of view, car parks are provided to sustain the road network, and they are to be considered as part of the road network. Now, rightly so, members obviously will have their priorities regarding the free running road network and making sure that that is maintained as best of our abilities. And maybe I know historically, car parks have been the poor relative who haven't had any money spent on them. On specifics around Broadford, we have some capital allocated around 2 projects in Inverness, which I think we're going to underspend, and I will be seeking approval from the Capital Board to have some of that surplus applied to the Broadford car park as a long-standing site to be. I can't guarantee success in that, members. I just wanted to make it clear that I'm seeking an opportunity to get capital from that small underspend on those other sites allocated to Broadford. Rudy, Councillor Stewart, yes, I fully acknowledge the debate, and John quite rightly said, a bit above my pay scale, and there was a lengthy debate at the paper about what that split would be. There was all sorts of things discussed, 60-40 and 100%, and members came to consensus on the 50% of net costs. But rightly so, I would await any representations members have and any instruction that comes to me after that. That's it, I think. And I'd just like to thank Councillor Munro for his kind words for the team on the island. We really value these operatives, these members of staff who work on Skye and live on Skye and are very in touch with the problems that you deal with and representations you get from the electorate on Skye. And you know, they do a grand job. We wouldn't be where we are now without them.
Okay, Shane. Yeah, thank you. And can I also echo my thanks to officers? And as you know, you and I have had many discussions. I'm keen that we possibly increase the team. And you know, I mean, there is the capacity, I believe, and there is the work. And it is encouraging to hear what you said about the possibility of some income coming from the Capital Board, which again leads us back to the fact that we also get, as we've discussed, 50% income back from parking. So I'm pretty sure there's the possibility of partnership working between any funding that came from the Capital Board and possibly some match funding from our disaggregated budgets, because if we work together, we can achieve so much more. So thanks for that. Okay, members, thank you, Shane. I think everyone is better informed now, and we'll probably hear from you again in the near future. And I think it should be recognised that the funding that's allocated for Skye is just up to the end of October. So we've still got 5 months of income that will be added to that 174,000. So thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you, members.
Okay, members, moving on to agenda item 9, Community Regeneration Fund Assessment. So we've got 2 applications here that we're going to discuss and then either approve or otherwise. And I'm delighted, as always, to welcome Marianne to committee. I'm seeing you for a while, Marianne, but we do know and do appreciate all you do in terms of community regeneration funding applications. So I'll go hand straight over to you, Marianne.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So, as you know, I'm here to discuss an application to the Community Regeneration Fund, and also you will have seen in the paper. I'll be asking members if they would be minded to approve match funding for a project that recently received an award of funding from the Scottish Government Islands Programme 24-25. So the report in front of you shows that there is currently a balance of just over £155,000 of CRF available within the Skye and Raasay 23-24 allocation. So there are no resource implications should members be minded to approve the funding awards as outlined in the committee report today. I'll start with the CRF application first. Ahead of the meeting today, you will have received a copy of the application form and a RAG, a summary spreadsheet highlighting the outcomes of the technical assessment. The application reference is CRF 2352, and the project you will be familiar with relates to the cost of replacing the existing footbridge over the River Ra in Uig. It is an internal application submitted by the Highland Council Property and Assets Service, and there are no eligibility concerns with the application. Just as a summary, an inspection of the bridge was carried out in 2022 and revealed that the bridge was deteriorating and needing replaced. The footbridge, as it is just now, provides safe access to the play park and the playing field from the parking area at the community hall. Fairhurst provided a new design for the bridge, and the project went out to tender in October. The total project costs are £160,000. It is noted, you'll have seen as part of the technical assessment, that the costs are quite considerable and much higher than we would have been anticipating. And this is reflected in the amber rating for value for money. However, it's worth noting also, upon reading the report from Fairhurst, that it is evident that the costs reflect the quality of the chosen design for the bridge. Match funding is secured and the project is ready to start as soon as funding is approved. The grant request amount today is £40,000. So I am asking you today, members, to decide whether to approve, defer or reject the application, and in the case of an approval, to agree the grant award amount and any condition of funding you might wish to attach over and above the technical conditions we will attach that may have risen from the technical assessment. So I'll hand over back to you, Chair, and you can let me know if there's any queries about the application.
Okay, thanks, Marianne. I'm happy to move a recommendation to approve. And I'm looking for a seconder from Councillor Miller, and we've got comments from Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Marianne. First, let me say this is a fantastic application. I'm glad to see this has came forward. I've visited the bridge myself and spoken to a number of people that use it, and it is a much used community facility. So I think this is, this is good news for the council. I know that it's been something that's been recurring for a number of years now. But I would just like to say that with the procurement sort of model that we've got, I think the cost for this is quite high, but I do think that there's no question that this is going to be a long-term asset for that community. So I've got no reservation with supporting this application. I'm happy to approve the funding for it. But I do just think we've got to look at ourselves inward as a council sometimes and reflect on perhaps the procurement and design process that we go through, because ultimately this is all public funds, and we do need to make sure that we're getting the best value for money for the money that we have. But no, I'm very happy to support this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Rudy, and a very relevant comment there. Yeah, I think we need to be mindful of the cost and the procurement, and I think also making sure that where possible we do use local contractors. But I think, as Marianne will have pointed out, they've got to take part in the tender process. If they don't put in a tender or get involved in the procurement process, I don't think that benefits us. But I think all members, Councillor Munro, are you happy to approve as well?
Yes, Chair, I am. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Marianne, unanimous approval.
Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on, you will be aware that a recent application made to the Islands Programme 24-25 was successful in securing £350,000 towards a total project cost of £550,000. The project reference was IP011, and it was a community and public access improvements project. Overall, the project aimed to deliver road widening schemes on the island, and more specifically targeting 3 roads, as you know, under extreme pressure as a result of the extraordinary levels of tourism that the island continues to experience. The three schemes, to be specific, are Clagan Road, Neast Point and Glen Brittle. So today, members, I am asking you to consider two recommendations for match funding to this project. The first one for £100,000 of CRF from the Skye and Raasay available allocation, and second one also for £100,000 of the local allocation of income generated from car parking charges in 23-24.
Okay, thanks, Marianne. I think we've discussed this at length between members and the importance of us being seen to provide much funding for our infrastructure projects on the island. So I'm certainly happy to agree. And I look for seconders and thirders and everyone else, and all members approve. So Marianne, yeah, you've got unanimous approval again for that second request.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, just to confirm, we've agreed the approved CRF grant award for each application up to the value of the available area allocation. Are we happy to agree? Agreed. Okay, thank you. And finally, members, a award discretionary budget. There's just for noting that we've given two awards, the Viewfield Garden Collective and the Nidvegan Community Council. It's just for noting. And that effectively, members, brings us to the end of the area committee. Can I thank you all for your attendance and for your comments? And I'm sure I'll see you all soon. And enjoy the sun, Councillor Miller.